Vincent Forras is a patriotic American and volunteer firefighter who answered the call to serve in New York City on September 11, 2001. A graduate of Bayside High School and Manhattan College with a teaching degree, Vinny opted to enter his father's aerospace business right after graduation in 1979. He took over the business 2 years later, and through growth and diversification, transformed it from a $500,000 business into 3 diverse companies with combined annual sales of $10 million. His business involvement lasted through the 9/11 tragedy, where he had a life-altering experience when he was buried amid the rubble during a rescue operation. After that near-death situation, Vinny decided to dedicate his life to helping others. In 2002, he founded Gear Up Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping families of those who perished at Ground Zero. In the past 9 years, the organization has donated more than $5 million in equipment and supplies for firemen throughout the world. Vinny Forras, welcome to the Global Freedom Report.
Thanks for having me, Brent. And first, let me apologize ahead of time for this head cold flu bug that I picked up, but hopefully it doesn't totally destroy my terrible New York accent.
Well, no, it's fine with me because I grew up in New York, and even if you don't hear the accent as much because I'm a broadcaster, it's old home week to me.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks for the wonderful introduction. And it's an honor to join you across the world today.
You were in the aerospace industry for several years. What did your company or companies do?
We were involved, my dad started the group. We were involved in guidance systems for missiles and aircraft, also all kinds of seaboard assemblies to space level. And we were we came up with the idea of the one-stop shop for British and NATO contractors who needed to buy American components. And we knew that market so well that we said we'd give you a turnkey operation. We'll put everything together almost like in the old Barton's chocolate boxes. And you guys just need to put it together. So that's what we were involved in, and I was very proud to service the aerospace industry both here and over in Europe.
I'm curious, did your work give you any special insights into the overall surveillance technology that is being employed pretty much everywhere in the world?
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny you say that. I speak to people now about some of these global drones and the predators and such, and you think, I've been out of the business for now coming on 10 years, and we were working on that stuff in the early 90s and mid-90s, so, the public only got wind of this stuff, in recent time, but it's amazing to see that technology, how far advanced we get, and if we know about this stuff now, I can only imagine what we really have.
Yeah, well, that's always we don't know what we don't know is basically, that's exactly. Always the question. One other thing I noticed that you got a teaching degree from Manhattan College. Was that Manhattan College the campus up in Riverdale?
Yes, it is. And I was the first year that it turned co-ed. It's a Christian school, and religion was a major course each and every semester. And I wasn't used to that. I went to New York City public schools, so I really had a challenge to try to catch up with theology and such. But, still old school values, wonderful professors, and, it was where Rudy Giuliani went.
They were reputed to have excellent engineering school. I grew up catty-corner from Manhattan College. I used to walk through the campus to go down Manhattan College Parkway to the train over at 242nd Street, which I would take into the city to go to school.
Oh, well, yes, famous elevated trains.
Yes.
Trestle.
Yes.
And more bars in a small area than, history could ever record. I know Manhattan, one of their great claims to fame was the #1 small drinking school in America back in the late 70s, I believe.
They also had one of the best pizza places in all the 5 boroughs right there, Joe's Pizza, Broadway Pizza.
Exactly right, man. You know the area.
Oh, so, I know Joe when he first started there, and that's great.
What a small world.
There you go. My guest is Vincent Forras of the Gear Up Foundation. You describe yourself as a patriotic American. In your opinion, what makes someone a patriot?
Well, I mean, like you started the show, and it's very important. It doesn't really matter what party you're in. We're all Americans, and this divisiveness is just, I think it's planned. It's probably planned on both sides, and it's really harming this nation. I think if you go to sleep and you dream in red, white, and blue, and lead in red, white, and blue, I have a son who's a serving U.S. Marine since 9/11. You're giving your all for this nation. I love this nation more than my own life and this ideal that we have, and to watch it going into the abyss. I often look at it like our moral compass has been tampered with, and now that's over 30 years, actually. But we must recalibrate that to our original founding fathers' values. And so for me, I watched my brothers die at Ground Zero and so many innocent victims, and as they go up to heaven, I see angels wrapped red, white, and blue. So, maybe it's over the top, but these are my true feelings. That
No, nothing over the top about it. From what I heard you say, and I do listen carefully, from what I heard you say, is patriotism is love for our country as our founding fathers created it.
That's right.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Excellent. Just so we know where we all stand when we have a frame of reference. Words like patriot, have been so abused and misused that I like to make sure we understand each other before we start talking about anything.
No, absolutely right. And look, I mean, whether you wear a flag on your lapel, this was one of my pet peeves when a certain man running for president or, wouldn't wear it. And to me, if you're going to represent America, that should be something that you are so proud to display all the time. I mean, every suit, every blazer I wear, it's like, you got to be kidding me. So, that's my New York attitude coming out. But, this shouldn't be a forced issue. This is, just a natural course of events that we never apologize for what America is, that we should always be proud of this nation and what our sacrifice has been across the world.
Now let's talk about September 11, 2001. At the time I was in Texas. I watched this on television, and I want to tell you the first thing that went through my brain was that I was watching television. I mean, literally, there was absolutely nothing that went on for me. It took me a good 30 to 40 seconds of watching it to realize, oh my God, this is something happening live. This is actually going on. So, I cannot even begin to imagine what it was like for people who were there at the time. And I know people who were there at the time. I grew up in New York. How did you first learn of the events of that day? And by what time did you actually get to New York? And what were the general conditions when you got there?
Well, for me, it was, as everyone describes it, that pristine, beautiful fall day that comes around once every maybe 20 years, kind of just perfect. I was living on a little lake at the time, and my decision that morning to start my day was I'm playing hooky from work. I wasn't going to go down to work that day, and I was fishing. And I had come in with my first, couple of catch of the day, and I had the TV on in the background, and I'm watching they're reporting about the building on fire and a small plane hitting, and I'm looking at it, and I'm saying, I know Ground Zero, I know that area, World Trade Center, and, that plane doesn't look like it was a small plane, right? And then I'm hearing the explanation, and then you're watching this full wide-body plane hit a building. Now, I think they're showing a replay.
Let me ask you, where were you? Were you, I know you grew up in Connecticut. Were you living in Connecticut? Were you living in New York at the time?
I actually grew up in Queens, New York. And I was living in a little town called South Salem, New York.
Why did I think Connecticut?
Yeah, no, I grew up in Queens, New York, Beechhurst, Bayside area, and Whitestone Bridge, Frogs Neck Bridge, all of that landmark area there.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were right there on the waterfront growing up, and great neighborhood. But so I'm up in this little town, sleepy town, about 50 miles north of the city, where I was a volunteer firefighter at South Salem Fire Department. And I'm watching this plane hit, and I'm thinking, what are these guys, crazy? This is a big plane. How could they think it's a small plane? They're showing it again. Meanwhile, that's the second plane. And right then and there, we got phoned out with our notification system. So we actually went, reported to the station. We got deployed. to first White Plains, New York, which is a control center where they dispatch everyone down to New York on the all hands call. Our first port of call was Bronx, New York, northern Bronx, like Fremont section.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to man one of the FDNY stations because they were rolling their assets to ground zero.
Now, hang on a second. FDNY Fire Department of New York. What was that you said we got toned out? Was that like suddenly everybody's beeper goes off or something?
Exactly right. So the beeper popped and it's, saying that, there's a situation, wait for the announcement, and then, they told us where to go. And, so we spent some time in the Bronx, and from the Bronx they deployed us to Harlem with our rescue truck, and we covered Harlem Station on 3rd Avenue and about 125th Street or so. And that was our overnight, watching Harlem in case there was a fire and we had to go react to it. By sunrise the next morning on the 12th, we deployed to ground zero, and literally it looked like a scene out of the Twilight. I knew this area very well, or at least I thought I did. We deployed on the West Side Highway on North Tower, and we were several blocks away. That's as close as we could get because of the debris field. And you're looking at 10 stories of rubble, smoldering, smoke, couldn't see very far. And my buddies were on ladder 3, FDNY, Jesse O'Donnell, Patty Brown, and I see ladder 3 crushed under North Tower. And I went up to the truck and I pulled the duty roster out and I saw buddies there. So then it became personal. But the feeling when you arrived and reported to the dispatchers there, what could we possibly do? I honestly felt like we were ants and trying to move a mountain. And literally those scenes you see with the guys by hand and buckets at the beginning, that's what we were doing. And that eerie sound of these locator alarms. Every fireman has it on his air pack, and he wears it, that if you stop moving for a certain amount of time, it starts chirping like crickets. And you hear this sound all around the site of chirping crickets.
Oh, my
Every
God.
one of those belonging to a fireman who's buried underneath there.
Oh, my God. So take us a little bit further into that day. What happened to you? You had what you described as a life-altering experience when you somehow got buried in the rubble. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It still gives me chills and the hair stands up. But about 3 days in...
And by the way, I appreciate that. I've seen TV shows where the plot line has people buried alive, kidnappers burying people. And as an actor, I can tell you, it's probably would be the most scary kind of role that I could play, because I get into my roles when I'm playing a part. And I can't think of anything that would be more frightening than to be buried like that. So I understand I'm asking you about something emotional, and I appreciate anything you can share with us.
No, not a problem at all. I mean, that picture still gives you shortness of breath. You think you train for, confined spaces and things like that until it actually really happens. It's not a training mission. But about 3 days in, during the middle of the night and day didn't really matter, we were kind of looking around the site for any areas, any voids, any entry points that, somebody could be there. And we always marked the area with an orange fluorescent paint if we searched it. And I looked at this area. It was like a little bit of like an opening, and I kind of moved it with my hands, and I started poking my head in, and it seemed to go, pretty much open. So it kind of lures you in. Instead of letting the guys know, you start to go in. It was stupid. And as I crawled further and further in, all of a sudden, everything started to shake. And all the debris came in behind me. So I was trapped in there like a cork. And it could have been 4 stories below ground. And it was pitch black. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. Screaming my head off. No one's hearing me. And
so you were alone?
That's it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you and just, death surrounding you. And the smell of death, which was the most disgusting, terrible smell you can ever imagine, that smell at ground zero. And I prayed to God. I mean, I really thought it was over, and I asked him, please let my kids know that I was trying to do something good, and hope they find me. And right when I did the prayer, I had my 3 infant babies. I was holding them in my arms, naked, illuminated, and I smelt the baby smell of the kids, that beautiful smell. And it was so real. I wasn't unconscious. I knew that at that moment that God is so close to us. He's right in us. He doesn't come from far away. And I told him, I said, if you can get me out of here, I promise I will dedicate my life to you, to doing something for you. And the kids disappeared, and it's just like illuminated for me to go further down. I don't know what made me want to do it, but I crawled, and after 2 hours, I got myself out and came back around to the spot where the guys were like wandering around, wondering, and it was like almost like Indiana Jones, you know, when he falls off the cliff with that tank, and everyone's looking over the cliff, and you come up from behind and say, hey guys, and they go, you were there, and I was like, not going to believe what happened. Let's just get back to work.
No, wait, did they know you had been buried at that point?
They had no idea what happened to me. Like, it was like I was there 1 minute, and the next minute I was gone.
Man,
and, you know, you're talking a very dangerous site that was, you know, shards and debris and steel and burning stuff and, you know, in the middle of the night. And, you know, it's a miracle that people didn't.
How long were you buried?
Almost 2 hours.
Okay, now, it's more than 10 years after the events of that day. First off, how is your health? Did you have any reactions to being buried for 2 hours under that rubble, which was toxic?
Well, for me, it was being on the site 3 weeks and being exposed. They say the first week was the real terrible time, where the air had a pH of Drano, and there were toxins in the air that they don't even know what were. And depending on where you served on the site, if the air conditioning freon that burned that turned to phosphine, you were poisoned with nerve gas. If you were near the mercury for the generators, you lost your teeth. Many different cancers, all kinds of...
So a smorgasbord of disease. Thank you very much.
Yes, a toxic cocktail, we call it. And, you know, a lot of the guys, like myself, I take 20 different meds a day on all kinds of different things and constantly being monitored like lab rats.
So you have indeed had some kind of health problems as a result of your time there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I ended up, you know, with a disability because of my lung disease. I've had 4 sinus surgeries. I'm having heart problems, fluttering. No cancer, knock on wood yet, but I have a lot of cancerous polyps.
But none of this stuff was pre-911.
Oh, no, I was healthy as a horse. I used to run 3 miles a day, and now I get winded just walking up the stairs.
Now, what about some of the other people with whom you served who were also there? Have they had similar health problems that they didn't have beforehand, anything like that?
Absolutely. Put it in perspective, we lost 3,000 people that day. 1,200 first responders have died who served with me at Ground Zero since 9/11 from their direct exposures to toxin zero. Guys are dropping like flies, approximately 5 a week now dying. And the government has turned its back on the guys in general, and only of late, as a DROGA Act, which was passed, they've eliminated cancer as one of the covered diseases, which is what the guys are dying from.
Now, first off, I understand some agency decided that. What agency rendered the determination that the Health and Compensation Act would not include people who develop cancer? Who made that decision?
This was something out of left field, Brent. I don't even know. You know, you had the Super Fund, which was a fund set up in New York, a mass insurance fund, that got lobbied for 8 years without paying out a dime. Finally, it went for the Congress and the Senate, and they put all these caveats in, one of which, at the end, after the bill was signed, we found out that cancer was actually set aside as not a valid covered disease. The guys to claim Ground Zero, which is preposterous. You know, the guys I see that we bury constantly, once they get this terrible cancer that moves so quickly through their body and ravages them, you know, they're dead within 3 months, 6 to 10.
I cannot even begin to imagine how betrayed these people, the ones who have survived, must feel. Could you characterize the feelings of some of the people you know or you've spoken with, first responders with whom you've interacted, regarding this decision?
We're totally enraged about it and disappointed and disgusted. I mean, think about it. This is the same administration that uninvited the first responders to 9/11 this year, of which I was one of them. The first responders were told not to show up to Ground Zero this year. So the first guys to show up on 9/11/2001 were the first to be told not to show up on 9/11/2011.
And the reason?
They never quoted a real reason. They were saying there are going to be too many people there, and there could be a security threat. Now, we're the guys who risked our lives and are dropping like flies. You're going to keep the guys who answered the call out. This was like, I couldn't even believe that this is happening in this day and age. But then again, we have to believe it's happening because this is just par for the course.
Well, and one of the greatest strengths of the devil is that nobody believes in the existence of the devil. And so, indeed,
well, there you go.
You have to accept what's happening. You may not like it. You may wish that your government respected your country and your country's principles, but historically our founding fathers told us that government is a necessary evil. We don't keep chains on it.
It's the bad now.
Yeah. Is there any legal recourse to the decision? Or, alternatively, can individuals file their own lawsuits to be compensated for the injuries? The fact that it's not covered.
Exactly on target, man. We are actually going now. They are reopening the Victims' Compensation Fund for guys that feel like we got shafted under Zadroga. And, again, this is class action stuff. They're counting on the guys dying, and more of the guys who die, the less money they got to pay out. It's all a mathematical formula. And after a certain amount of time, there'll be a win that says, okay, yeah, the guys will be covered for this, but it'll be too late.
Yeah, but I would think you have a foundation. I would think that these people could set up foundations so that their interests, the first responders, their interests are represented by the foundations, whether or not they're alive or not.
Absolutely, and it's not an easy task for us. We're a drop in the bucket. We're literally, trying to help in any means we can, to pay tribute to guys, to help guys get vices, that ease their pain, sleep problems, headache, other things, and try to get this out to the American public. But again, we're just, like they say in New York, small potatoes. And, but we're doing our best. We know we can't turn our backs on these guys. And I just wish that, the American public and the world in many ways, this was a worldwide event, would step in and say, hey guys, you must take care of the best amongst us. Hopefully with those like yourself, we bring the word to people that don't really realize how many guys are dropped.
Hopefully indeed. Since the debris was hauled away, unlawfully I might add, how can we be absolutely certain there are contaminants and materials that were damaging the health of the first responders?
Well, they took readings. I mean, look, we were there while the guys from the government were there in their spacesuits, their self-contained, apparatus. They did tests of the air gauges at least, and they know that levels were literally like we were breathing Drano. That's why it attacked our throats and lungs. I still get little shards of glass taken out of my back once in a while when it pushes away. The glass is like aerosol, and it went into your system, and the stuff in our lungs is there for good. That'll never come out. But, look, they know, the guys who are losing their teeth, a year later.
No, and that's a fair answer, but I thought it was a question that should be asked. The mission statement of the Gear Up Foundation, to honor those who perished, served, and were affected by the events of September 11, 2001 by promoting international brotherhood and goodwill, providing equipment, education, and hope to firefighters and children in need worldwide, bringing our world closer together as ambassadors of goodwill, exemplified by the passion, bravery, and brotherhood of firefighters representing all that is good about those who answer the call. How do people learn more about Gear Up Foundation, and more particularly, how do people who were not first responders exert pressure to bring greater justice to those who did risk their lives and lost their lives on that day?
I appreciate you quoting the mission and vision, and for us, the website is a pretty involved site, lots of material, and they can just go to Gear Up Foundation, gearupfoundation.org. We're a 501(c)(3) foundation. All the information's there. We try to link with a lot of sites.
We'll try not to hold the 501(c)(3) against you.
Well, the government did for almost a year and questioning it. And
that's my point.
Like, it's terrible, man. It's terrible. But you know what? In the end of the day, you know, they said, oh, I guess we have to keep it with you. You're doing everything right. But, you know, we keep nothing. Literally. I don't take any dollar out of it.
I know, but you have to jump through a million hoops for them, and we know all about that.
Terrible.
Vinny Forras, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and it's been like old home week, like I said, which is very cool. Let me give out the website again, www.gearupfoundation.org. We'll also have it posted on the links page. God bless you in the work you're doing, and I wish you the greatest in success.
God bless you, and it's a pleasure to join you and all the folks who listen. Thank you so much, Brent. It was a pleasure.
Thanks much. Vinny Forras, gearupfoundation.org.